We are here with mayoral candidate and current city council chairperson, uh, Jennifer Kannan. How are you today?
I'm doing good, Tim. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for making yourself available for this.
My pleasure.
I guess in terms of the campaign, probably kind of get it out of the way. You guys issued a statement on Friday.
Yes.
Can you, for those voters of the folks watching this that may not have seen that or not understood it, what are your concerns there?
So during our debate on October 10th, myself and Mr. Perry were asked a question, a personal question, as what is one of the biggest personal challenges that you have occurred in your lifetime? I was the first candidate to answer, and it's very hard to talk about your personal life. I don't really remember ever being asked a question in any debate that I've had in the city, whether it was my at-large or the last time I ran for mayor. So I was the first to answer. It did set me back a little bit because, again, your personal life and, challenges are sometimes tough to talk about. So I did talk about my 15-year-old son who was told that he had stage 3 cancer. And it was a shock to myself and my family. And I put my life and career aside to make sure that I was going to be with him at every appointment that he had in Boston. And we persevered. And he is now a cancer survivor. So it was very hard to talk about that. And then the Mr. Perry answered the question. And he said that he was embarrassed because he was going through a painful divorce, according to said, and then he said he had a restraining order issued against him. Not much after that, just more so, it's embarrassing and whatever, tough on the family, but it's a restraining order nonetheless. And I couldn't believe it. I don't know if he was told by his committee to come ahead of a story. I don't know. But the bottom line is he mentioned it. And we are both in the process of being interviewed by the voters of this community. We're being interviewed by the voters for the top job, which is the CEO of the city of Methuen. And I think anybody who owns a business, no matter what type of business you own, if an application is filled out and somebody writes that they were issued a restraining order, I think it is your duty to find out what the restraining order was. Who are we putting in our business or in our office or, whatever. It's our duty. The next day, my phone rang off the hook with plenty of people. What did you think of that? And whatever. And the bottom line is, as we stated in the Globe article, we looked into it. And any public record that is available to the general public is what we had, and we looked into it. And quite honestly, it was nothing that I would be proud of if it was me. But I think we got it out there because it was the MCTV debate. There was about 15 people in the audience, and quite frankly, I don't know how many people were viewing. But it's something that the general public has the right to know in order for them to go to the polls and make their decision. However they want to vote, they need to be informed. And the Perry campaign has been spinning it as dirty politics. Quite frankly, if dirty politics started the day I pulled out my papers to run for office. I've had an open book for the last 10 years while I served because I am an elected official. And when you are a public official, your life becomes an open book. And from the onset of me announcing, he's had a few of his people, I'm not going to mention names, you can go on his Facebook page, my Facebook page, and they continuously attacked me from my education to anything that they could find. And the second you bring up something that's critical to them, they turn around and say that negative politics. I have a record of always having good politics. I stand by everything I say, but running for this type of office, the CEO, I believe it's giving the people the information that they should look at. Whether they want to agree with it or not, that would be their decision. But as far as I'm concerned, he made a mention of it. He publicized it in a very small forum, and I think the general populace needs to hear it. And so that's it.
Do you, in terms of what you guys brought forward in that statement, in terms of the concerns, outside of just the restraining order, you guys brought forth some other concerns in terms of what you've heard during the campaign. You want to address that?
So again, I never go on rumor. Early on, people were mentioning that stuff to us as we were going to the community, because honestly, the first day I ever met Neil Perry was at National Night Out, which was August 5th. As you all know, I'm very involved in the community. Even the 2 years that I was not in office, I still stayed involved with the MAIC project. I helped residents who called me if they had a question or concern. So honestly, I have been out and about 12 years just in the elected portion of it, and have never met this man. And so all this other stuff that had come out, whatever facts we put on our website are that facts. Anybody who knows me, I don't react to rumor. So that's why I never would even consider that. However, when Mr. Perry brought it to light on that day, it was, okay, well, this is something that needs to be looked into. Again, you're running for an office with two individuals. The residents have the right to know, and they have the right to make their decision based on what they have, what information is provided to them. I wholeheartedly believe that.
So, in terms of your candidacy, um, when you knock door to door, when you're talking to voters face to face, what are the issues that are key to you that you are letting the voters know that you're gonna take on, whether it's your first 100 days or just as a backbone of your time as mayor if elected?
When I do knock on the doors, people do recognize me. I knock on the door, and I usually have my nameplate on, and they say, no, we recognize you. And I do explain to them that I'm very well aware of what the city has been through in the last couple of years. I will tell them that for the last 2 years, as I served on the Methuen City Council as the chair, the first year, unanimously, my colleagues put me in as the chairperson of the City Council. If you look back at the last couple of years before that, there wasn't a lot of following the charter as far as going through the budget as we should. Myself, Councilor Ferry, Councilor Vidla, and Councilor Marcian all talked about, well, why aren't we going through this budget line by line? That is one of the main things the City Council could do. It was voted on, and the four of us were in the minority that we would not go through the budget line by line, which was just not the right thing to do. But again, you can go back and look at that meeting. Why would we not be able to open that budget? When I won that the following term, a lot of the new city councils were very upset about that process. And I promised them and the public that, while I'm the chair, that we will go line by line on the budget, and that we will follow rules and the policies that you should as a city council. And we did. And then on March 5th, when the revelation came out about the superior officer's contract, we ended up handling that head on. We ended up handling the $4 million overspending by the school department head on. And we had a lot of work to do. And quite honestly, there was 5 new counselors. And I will give each one of them praise that we stayed working hard. We showed up, and some of those meetings were till very late at night. But we were doing our job as city councilors. This second term of my candidacy this year, I was voted again 7-2 to lead the council again. My leadership on the council shows that I run meetings well, that I make sure that we have any information, and that I also always ask the advice of the city attorney. Now, whether people agree with that or not, we are not attorneys on the city council. Or I should say, even if there was an attorney on the city council, they're not municipal attorneys. And we have one there that should be discussing with us the policies. Are we doing this the right way? Should we not be doing this? And guiding us. I usually ask the city attorney questions if there is a concern from one of the councils or even myself about, are we following procedure, and how we should be doing this. And I don't know if that was the case 2 years ago, but I made it my commitment that I would be doing that while I was the city council chair. So I think my leadership under the last 2 years on the city council shows the residents that going into the mayor's office, knowing how the city council works, knowing how to deal with elected officials, knowing how to deal with the school committee members, and just knowing the overall way the city functions, I think my experience there is definitely more paramount than my opponents.
There's been a lot made of conflicts of interest, and in terms of uh, relationships or family members that work for the city.
Mm-hmm.
I've been outspoken in that conflicts of interest are about how you handle them.
Mm-hmm.
How have you addressed that with voters in terms of the fact that you have family members that serve the city?
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to be able to deal with those issues differently as mayor than maybe you were able to as a city councilor?
Right. So thank you for that question. And I do talk a lot about that. And I've talked a lot about that for 10 years, because 10 years I've served the city well. And my family members have always, again, when you're a part of a community, you will have family members working there. And that's all part of being a community. I will never hold anybody to a different standard if they have a family member who works for the city, because it's not the person that works for the city. It's actually the elected official or even an appointed official who will take an official action on something that they should not take if a family member has a financial impact. Now, I've talked to a lot of people, and I think the buzzword went around for the city that, conflict of interest. I have no conflict of interest. Do you know that, again, being in government for 10 years, they wouldn't even know if they had a conflict of interest. There could be 9 councilors sitting on the panel, and there could be maybe a housing project right next door to them. They would have to recuse themselves from that vote because their property is right next door to that housing project. There could be somebody who works for a company, and if their company is coming forward with some type of resolution, it could be, that they could be bidding on a job or whatever. That person should recuse themselves from that vote. So it's about your ethics and how you go about knowing what's in front of you. And if you don't know if there is something in front of you that you shouldn't be voting on, then you can call the Ethics Commission or you can ask your city solicitor and err on the side of caution. And I have done that my entire career. Now, going to answer the question about what do you do when you go into the mayor's office, the mayor's office has no voting authority. They have the only voting authority the mayor's office has is the power of veto. I believe I've only seen that used twice under my 10 years on the city council. And therefore, when you look at any vote that a city council has taken, if they have a family member, what they usually do is they recuse themselves because the line item, the direct line to their family's finances, they have to recuse themselves. However, when they vote on the entire budget, such as the school department, such as the DPW department, you can't do personnel services in the DPW, but you can vote on the entire DPW department because you're not voting specifically for one. That is how the mayors they do it. They can handle each department as long as it is not the line item, which that authority falls within the city council. And if you want after this, I'd like to get into talking about what I would do when it comes to union contracts, just so that the residents know how fair I plan on being in that department. But the question there is your instant conflict with the direct line item goes away. And with my track record, I think that the voters should look at that and just say, you know what, she's never, ever voted for anybody in her family. Therefore, my record stands for itself.
I will come back to the union issue, but I just wanted to kind of put a bow on this. There are folks that would say, so folks that applaud the way that you run meetings, but there have been folks that have been confused when you stepped out of the room during some of the situations, and because you were running the meetings, it was a more chaotic situation when you were gone. There seemed to be a sliding scale in terms of who stepped out due to conflicts of interest. The mayor, very rarely until the end of the police discussions, stepped out of the room. In fact, he led a lot of the conversations. Um, how how have you explained that in terms of how you handled that when you've had to address it with voters?
So I know the optics do not look good because I would go home and I'd watch the meetings, because when you come home after a meeting that ends at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, in some cases 2 o'clock, you're not tired, you're wound up. So I had most of the times DVR'd them, and it doesn't look good, but it is required by law to do so. And I always call the Ethics Commission. I have a file with them for any question that I may feel that I just want to know what the right thing to do is. And, we have 9 counselors, and there are times where other counselors will have conflicts. And again, if they want to exercise the right way to do it, then they get up, they go out, and we'll handle it. If there is, whoever the counselor is, but there are 9 of us. And because there was this polarizing contract, and it just took so long, and it was an every meeting type thing, sometimes it was special meetings, it did show that me and Council Vidler were getting out of our chairs a lot. But it was the right thing to do. And if it was the DPW, or if it was, um, another department and somebody had to get out, as long as they did that, then they're following the law. There's nothing wrong with it. And it's very easy to say when you see that, well, I wouldn't have done that and I would have done this. But I've always erred on the side of caution because I have the city to protect, and I don't ever want to give the fact that there is an appearance of a conflict. And so, again, I will take that. When you see me doing it in a public forum on the city council, that's where we meet. But when you know that I'm going into the mayor's office, which is on a day-to-day basis is in a room, then you know that that's my ethics, and that's what I'm going to take into the mayor's office.
So, just to be clear on it,
Yep.
you don't have any regrets in the way that you handled in terms of stepping out of the room
Not a
when you
single
did.
regret.
Say that again.
Not a single regret.
So let's move to the what you mentioned in terms of union contracts and any, again, family members that may be involved or may work for the city. How would you handle union negotiations when mayor?
So, as time goes on, we do a lot of collective bargaining agreements over the time. I believe that from the time I started being a city council in 2008, we had many union contracts, sometimes all of them. And it was just this one contract that time that reared its head in the second year of the contract, which was 2018. When I ran for mayor the last time in 2013, they brought up the same issue. Oh, conflicts, conflicts, conflicts. And I looked at them and was asked a question, and they said, well, how will you negotiate contracts? Almost like, well, you can't. And I said, well, what I think I would do is I would put the best team in there. And as time went on, there is a group called the Managers and Mayors Associations, and they are pretty much telling these mayors that, again, you really have no complete expertise in running union contracts. You put together a good team of people, and they have their experts, which are union attorneys and members of the union. So why shouldn't the city have the same? Versus every 6 years, a different mayor coming in some cases this year, every 2 years. Why not put together a team of attorneys? Uh, now that we have the CAFO, $170,000 position brought in here to have administration, financing, and also she was part of an appointment from the Secretary of Administration and Finance in Boston. She's here because she has a significant background in this. So, and I want to take the politics out of it, because people in the community may feel, well, oh, they know someone in this department, they know somebody in this department. At the end of the day, my bingo word, I say that I would put together a team that would consist of the CAFO. I would say it would consist of any department head that I deem necessary that should be in there for the particular contract. But also, what people don't understand is the mayor's office has a personnel expense, and I would bring in an outside attorney, and it's not going to cost the city millions of dollars, but they have expertise in union negotiations. We do have a city solicitor, and they are municipal, advisors to the council as far as from meetings to, a wide variety of things. But in hindsight of this, that is why I would put together a person who is specifically knowledgeable on union contracts and just bring them in during that time, because these contracts last 3 years, so it would be a one-time, maybe however long it lasts, month or two, and then once then they ride off into the sunset until 3 years later when the next contract. But it would be for the benefit of the community. That way there is no ties to anybody in that room. And that is what the people of Methuen, that when I knock on their doors, that's what they ask, and when I tell them, they like that idea.
We ran into a lot of problems when the mayor was kind of leading those negotiations. Your opponent has said that he would, that he would continue that practice, that he would lead the negotiations. When you hear that, how do you react to that?
Very easy. No experience in municipal government. None. Because for him to say that, when I asked him a question at the debate, we were able to ask each other a question, and one of my questions to him was, how would he have voted on the MOU that was presented to the city council? Because he actually, on Facebook, I think even prior to him pulling out his papers for mayor, months, oh, they should have paid that MOU, and it's that this, you should have did this, you should have did this, you should have did this. So my question to him was, how would you have voted on the MOU, and why? And his first comment, well, what? Would I know then or would I know now? And I just couldn't believe what I was hearing, because every time we had a debate, every time he had his people do their talking points, it was always, well, they didn't understand it, they didn't do this, and it was almost like, well, what do you mean before you knew then what you knew now? So only you have that luxury to say what you would have done then and what you would have done now. And he had said pay the MOU. Well, in light of this council, and this is the one that I've recused myself, this council has done a great job at least getting to the facts and what actually did happen, because honestly, the investigation is still going on, and they will find out what happened and how those members were able to get to where they got. Now, when I answered my own question, my answer was very simple. No, I wouldn't have supported the MOU. The MOU should not have been brought forward, because it wasn't what the city council that I sat on, that we were presented with a 0, 2, and 2 contract. That's what the contract was. We all voted on that because that is what we were told. That nobody had said, oh, it's not 2 and 2. And honestly, if people are saying, well, you should have had a financial report. Again, if it was 2 and 2, we didn't have it, but if I was going to speculate, I think we would have gotten a piece of paper that showed 2 and 2, what the percentage would have been. So again, you can play Monday morning quarterback on this issue. Nobody wants to know more than what happened and why this occurred. And I think we're going to be finding that out, and I look forward to it. But I will be honest with you. I think that if he thinks that he's going to go in and think that because he does contracts, I do contracts too for a living, but union contracts are very different. And I believe that the best thing for our city is to have people, a team of so that nobody feels they have to kiss the ring.